Hi. Well, good morning for me and early morning, as you said, Grant. Thank you so much for that great introduction. I'm delighted to be here at the Global Sources Online show, and I'm here to deliver my session, as you mentioned, on the must-have smart health devices for home care. It's certainly a very interesting space and very timely with all the things happening in the world that I will address later on in my presentation. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is João Bocas, also known as the wearables expert, and I've been in health and wellness for over 20 years, and I'm very passionate about technologies impacting human health. And today I will talk about smart devices for home care and also other applications. And hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be better equipped and knowledgeable about smart technologies that you can use for personal use or even business use in the healthcare settings. But to start with, let me share my vision. Well, with so much happening in the world, and healthcare is a very a global topic, and I believe that the healthcare of the future is self-care, where oneself will eventually take care of their home health. And what's the best place to practice self-care? Well, is at home. Many experts predict that the hospitals of the future will be home, where we take care of our own health with smart devices, smart technologies, and rely less and less on health systems, and home care will be the future. Now let me show you these lifestyle diseases that are the main ones that impact human health. Certainly heart disease, which is the number one cause of worldwide death and is responsible for over 30% of deaths worldwide. Diabetes is also extremely big in the sense of the disease management. Cancer, now we have hypercholesterolemia, which is high cholesterol, and obesity. These are the main ones impacting human health. And lately, obesity actually was considered a disease by the World Health Organization. But now we need a change in paradigm. Now I'm showing this slide, which is a book by Eric Topol, a well-known digital health influencer and well-renowned cardiologist in the United States. He wrote a book called The Patient Will See You Now, where he turns the medicine upside down, giving the responsibility to the patients to take care of their own health, which is really extremely innovative and is certainly a change in paradigm in terms of the dynamic in healthcare. And by 2025, it's predicted that we will have over 75 billion of IoT connected devices, which is astonishing. Now we see things such as smart cities, smart homes, the connectivity with so much innovation happening, artificial intelligence, the smart devices, wearables. We already have smart fridges, we have smart TVs. So everything is progressing so fast and is astonishing. So many devices are coming to our lives. And now, talking about smart devices, I have a few examples here for you. Well, the very first one on the top right of your screen, if you like, is the Cardia, which we can have an ECG reading by on the back of our phones by placing the thumbs on that connected device that gives us a reading of our heart function. The second one is a Muse headset where physiological data can be streamlined and also address stress and some imbalances in human body. The third one in orange is the new Huawei smartwatch GT2, which has a CPO2 supported included for oxygen saturation. And then we have a smart thermometer there. We have smart rings. We have a smart glucometer for those that suffer from diabetes. As I mentioned before, one of the big ones, the lifestyle diseases. We have the smart scales. And lately, on the bottom of my screen is a wearable, which is a blood pressure monitor on your wrist, which is a non-invasive blood pressure device from a company in Israel called Biobit, that now you can take your blood pressure readings by a non-invasive display of technology, and also in a much smaller manner, looking like a smartwatch. So as you can see, there is a blend of things that you can use. I like personally, which I will move on next, the smart rings is certainly a new trend emerging, where is a blend of fashion and tech, which I'll talk about in a second. As you can see now, that smart ring, as I mentioned before, by a Finnish company called Aura, they call the Aura ring, with a lot of technology and sensing technology behind the ring. And as I mentioned before, one of the new trends is fashion tech, where things are progressing so fast. It's not just about the traditional fitness trackers that we used a while ago. It's not just about smart watches anymore. Now we can have a ring that looks extremely fashionable and also is a very powerful piece of technology. And in this particular case, it gives a lot of physiological data, addresses sleep in a quantitative and qualitative manner, which sleep sometimes can be very difficult in terms of measuring, but the quality of the data in this particular device is extremely reliable, and it gives the heart rate variability and much more insights in terms of human health that you can rely on. Now I would like to show you some of the wearable technologies trends in 2020. Well, on the top you see the traditional fitness trackers that everyone knows from long-standing, and also the new manufacturers are always kind of upgrading them by looking better and more fashionable for the 21st century, if you like. The smartwatches, the main brands are coming out with new models. As I mentioned Huawei before, for example, the G2 smartwatch, ECG monitors. You can see there are many things happening in that. Sense. Can you still see my screen? I just jumped on. Yeah, biosensor. Yeah, I'll just jump out of my own computer. The biosensor is there. The assault protection in that sense. The smart rings that I just mentioned. The wearable speakers. We have wearables for blinds now. We have smart helmets for cyclists. We have smart clothing, also a very interesting trend now, the smart clothing, e-clothing, where sensing technologies are embedded in our clothing. We have the smart glasses, even smart belts, sleep and lounge capabilities, smart shoes. So as you see, there is really a big picture in terms of wearable technologies of things happening right now. And you would be very difficult not to talk about the global pandemic now. The COVID-19, the coronavirus is affecting more or less everyone in the world in one way or another. And what I would like to talk to you is about how technology can actually place and be used in that sense. And I truly believe that wearables and smart devices play a very, very crucial role there. And I'll give you an example by Oxytone Medical, a company in Israel. Israel is actually a very hotbed for digital health technologies that provides on your wrist, as you can see the device, what it looks like, a continuous remote monitoring capability on your wrist, which can be used by clinicians to fight against COVID-19. But let me picture a scenario for you. With the COVID-19, if, for example, you get infected, you go to an hospital, nobody can be around you, how do you know that you're actually making progress in terms of your health data? How people know that actually you can be discharged and keep one eye on you by coming back home on your health insights? Well, by remote monitoring capabilities, smart devices, and in this case, a wearable wrist, wearable smart device. I'd like to give you some of my top tips to make the most of using your out of your device. Engage intrinsically, and that means that find something that is meaningful to you. For example, I'm interested in my physical activity, but at the moment I'm very interested in my sleep. And I monitor my sleep regularly and carefully, and that is a meaning to me. So engaging intrinsically is extremely powerful and also useful for long-term engagement, because one of the things that I've done a report and studies on this. I wrote a 159 pages report on health engagement with wearable devices. And one of the things that we notice is a barrier that is long-term engagement. So the long-term engagement can be actually challenged by engaging meaningfully with a piece of health data or something that is meaningful to you, whether that is losing weight, more activity, eating more regularly, something that is extremely important to engage for the long term. And charge your device regularly. It might seem very simple and blunt, but what happens is when you let your device run out of charge, you also break a pattern of usage. Whether you live that in the office, you live at home on the top of the fridge or in your bedroom without charge, then you broke your pattern of usage. And when you break your pattern of usage, you you break a cycle that you need to re-engage again, and then you might disconnect by using the device that you've been using for some time. And set up goals and challenges, which is important to keep an eye on your sleep, your physical activity, whatever is relevant to you. And also, there are many studies suggesting that avoid overlooking. For example, if you are trying to lose weight, avoid perhaps checking your weight daily or regularly or more than once a day. That can be detrimental, because we all know that if we lose weight, we're not going to lose weight every day. So you might feel that you're not making progress. It can be detrimental in terms of mental health, in terms of negative feelings and negative connotations associated with the devices that can have a negative effect on you. And I'd like to leave you with a nice video. Well, as you saw there, a sensor on your tooth giving you some meaningful insights around healthy eating. And what I would like you to live with is really expect the unexpected for the healthcare or the home care of the future. And thank you so much for listening to my keynote. Welcome to Connect with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very insightful presentation. That was really eye-opening, especially the last one was a very innovative product. Okay, guys watching, if you have any questions, then post them in the comments. I'm keeping an eye on the comment section. I will read them out to Joel over here. And I see there's some comments over here. Hi, Derek. Derek is saying good morning, all. We've got Mr. Lynn Wesley. He's saying good job. Thank you so much for your comments. Anthony, good to see you here again. All right, so Joel, I want to ask you a couple of questions. In terms of consumer adoption of these devices, what are you seeing? I mean, are consumers really, being able to adopt these devices easily, or is there something that's really holding people back from using these kinds of trackers in their daily lives?
Well, a good question. Well, let me give you a bit of a statistic at the moment. About 20 to 25% of the adult population have some sort of wearable or smart device. So adoption is certainly increasing. Of course, all these devices, the smartwatches and other things are more accessible to us now. They are in the shops, in mainstream markets. But I think is also a piece of health education that is missing because healthcare is also complicated and people think that they need to be very knowledgeable to use the device or they need to be very technical. So there are always small barriers associated with it, but certainly the adoption is increasing and is more mainstream right now.
Right, that totally makes sense. And in terms of the devices that people are mostly using, do you think it's more of the, health-based devices that people are using, or are they also, some beauty-based devices? Because I was actually doing an interview with one of the suppliers at the Global Sources online show, and they're an exhibitor here, and they make some smart beauty devices that seemed very interesting. So what trends are you seeing in terms of the applications? Like, are they mostly health-based or also beauty-based?
Well, fantastic. Well, it is certainly a very exciting trend right now, which is fashion tech, which is a combination, let's say, of technology and you mentioned beauty, but in this case, it can be fashion. So in my presentation, I mentioned, for example, smart belts or smart rings, but we're actually seeing now a lot of things appearing, whether that are hearings. The other day, I saw air conditioner, small device be placed on the back of shirts for in the summer. So what is very interesting and exciting about technology is that the devices now, the small sensors, the capabilities, they become smaller. They can be embedded more or less anywhere in our bodies, in our clothing. And that's extremely exciting because the technology can be used in so many ways. It doesn't mean it has to be on your wrist or you have to be on your pulse anymore. You can new, very exciting new trends appearing.
Yeah, and there's so much R&D going on in China as well for these devices. So I actually did an interview with one of the factories. Again, they're an exhibitor here at the Global Sources online show. The company is called Jiangxi Yiru Technology Company Limited. So in case anyone is interested in these kinds of health, devices, you should definitely check out that company. I think their interview is going to be aired tomorrow, but you can search for the company on the Global Sources website. They're actually doing a lot of R&D themselves and developing a lot of cool products. So, Joel, are you seeing the adoption of these devices specifically higher in certain markets, like the US or Europe? You mentioned that Israel is doing a lot of, R&D and product development, but in terms of usage, which market are you seeing these devices being adopted more in?
Well, certainly Asia, and in this case China, you really have a pedigree in terms of developing technology. In terms of adoption, I'm seeing Europe and US leading the way.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very interesting statistic. For example, the Australian continent is actually a little bit behind in terms of adoption, and is a very developed continent and country. In Europe, actually, I see a small small leading in terms of adoption for one reason or another. It can be, for example, mainly about more financial power, or people adopt early, or there can be many factors to consider, or the technology arrives early in US and in Europe. So, but I see certain countries leading the way, really.
Right. That's great. Okay, so we have a question here from Sam. He's asking, what functions and features of health devices will people look for after COVID-19?
Oh, very, very interesting. Well, certainly things associated with with the coronavirus, associated with the temperature readings, certainly vacillation in heart rating function. There are some of the health signs related to COVID-19. I see really, for example, now we can say we use smart devices that do temperature readings and everything. One of the things that I would like to have more time to share about is, for example, the Oura Ring and other main technology players, Garmin, Fitbit. They're actually doing a lot of case studies around COVID-19 because they believe they can detect the signs early on, whether there is in temperature readings, whether there is in heart functionality. Some of the things that the COVID-19 signs are displaying, they can actually be picked up in smart wearable devices. So very good question. I think the wearables and the smart devices will play a very crucial role in the future for us to kind of keep an eye on this extremely powerful virus.
Yeah, that sounds very promising. So do you think COVID-19 has actually increased the adoption of smart devices? I mean, people are more, of course, health conscious, and they're focusing more on their on making themselves fit and healthy. So do you think this has really accelerated the adoption of smart health devices?
Well, fantastic point. Well, let me tell you that my main industry, I do other things in other industries, but my main industry is healthcare and health. And I see in digital health now many companies actually doing extremely well, from small companies, medium-sized and large companies, because of the demands on smart technologies, whether there are platforms, hardware and software, or a combination of both, because actually is a real need now. And I think in terms of addressing the marketplace, the COVID-19 really pushed forward this agenda. I think the agenda was already in motion. Things are progressing. The healthcare, traditional healthcare, is turning into a new digital health technology. But certainly, COVID-19 pushed this agenda forward, highlight the needs, and now even the governments are more involved, how they can actually change their health systems with technology to push the adoption forward.
Right. So we've got a question from Michael Reno, and it's sort of a long question. I'm going to try to read it, but his main question is platform a problem? So finding the best of breed can be difficult. I'm just going to read the question out for you, Joel. So he says, Apple iWatch has fall detection, but a horrible app. It cannot notify a caregiver, can only call emergency services, but their EKG sensor is great. Samsung has an advantage of iWatch on fall detection, but they've been delaying release for a year. And are either of them any good for Pulse OX? There was a sensor I saw at CES, and that was a scent sensor to detect blood glucose. Will Apple pick it up, or is it destined to be an independent device? So I guess what he's asking is that there's so many different platforms and companies that are working on different things, and it can get a bit complicated. So, as a user, how do you really make sense of all of this?
Well, fantastic question. Well, certainly Apple are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. They also believe to be doing work around diabetes and other things. And I do agree that the Apple Watch 5 have that extremely great capability, but of course, very early on was recognized a bit of a gap in the service, because what happens if I have a high reading, only alerts an emergency service, so there is no business continuity and business support in a sense. What needs to be done is have an overall service that closes the gap. So, for example, partnership with a company that can be giving support 24/7. It's all great to have a great technology, but it's not just about technology, it's the overall experience and the background support. And certainly Apple is a great company, but it failed in there in addressing that a piece of connectivity, because I might be in risk, but what happens next if no one knows I am in risk? So yeah, very great point. And I see Samsung and other companies coming out with the great innovation, but it's not just about the innovation, it's about the user experience, it's about the service, the support behind, and making sure that the overall loop of the health concern is addressed. So it's an overall service that needs to be wrapped around the technology. Otherwise, the technology, it becomes less and less powerful. And what we really want is technology to be more powerful and leave us where we need to be.
Yeah, excellent points there. So all of you guys watching, if you have any questions for Joel, type them in the comments. And if you're on the GSOS homepage, you need to click on Join the Conversation on the top right-hand side corner to be able to post and see comments. So Joel, while we wait for some more questions, we have about 5 minutes over here. So I wanted to ask you, what about accuracy of these devices? Of course, for many of these devices, we are really depending on them to give us, very accurate data. So in terms of accuracy, do you think they are 100% accurate, or is there still more work to be done?
Well, excellent point. This is always comes up in terms of accuracy and reliability. And as I mentioned before, I've done quite a lot of work on wearables studies and work with clients of all sizes around the world. And let me give you an example, and not to play devil's advocate in here, but every device has a degree of oscillation. Is for example, I'll give you an example. If you have a Fitbit or if you have a Garmin, is a degree of change in terms of your physical activity. So that leads us to think that the accuracy sometimes is not really 100%. I'll give you an example. When you get out of bed, if you have a wearable, it says that you already walked 200 or 300 steps. So, and sometimes you think, well, I haven't really walked 200 or 300 steps because I just got up. So is a degree of, because most of the devices have accelerometer sensors, that is a movement sensor. I'll give you another example. If you are driving, your wrist and your arm are moving behind the wheel. And most of these devices are also counting your steps there. So there is a degree, and also there is a conversation there to be added about what is actually, let's say, a more generic health fitness device and the clinical sense device. Because if you have, for example, a discrepancy of 10 or 20% in terms of steps, let's say if you walk 8,000 steps and your device gives you 10% error, it's not really a big deal. But if we are talking in a clinical context, if we're talking about an emergency, a person has a heart rate, is in an ambulance, he goes to an emergency hospital, a 10 or 20% discrepancy can be can cost a life, really. You don't really want to have that. So in a clinical sense, I believe the devices are more accurate. They needed to be. They are actually approved by certainly identities there, the FDA and the CE mark and everything. But also there is a piece there to be instigated around the more generic usage. And what I also, my last point, what I also see is that there is no benchmark, so because it's a new industry, everybody's kind of trying to fight against who's got the best technology, but there is no overall benchmark for, to be measured against there.
Right. I think those are very valid points. So all of you guys watching, definitely check out the suppliers on GSOS, the exhibitors that we have. They're really doing a lot of good work, and they've got some very cool products that are related to health monitoring and also some beauty devices. In fact, the next factory that you're going to see in Supplier Stories is actually doing some beauty devices that are very interesting. Well, Joel, thank you so much for your time here today. It was a really insightful and a very useful presentation. I'm sure all of our viewers found it very useful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.